As a biased cop patrols the park, he spots Brandon Stone sitting on a park bench feeding pigeons and interacting with people. He assumes Brandon is just another ordinary black man, and his prejudices immediately cloud his judgment. He approaches Brandon and asks him to leave, saying he doesn't belong there. When Brandon refuses, the officer strikes him with his baton, not knowing he just messed with the wrong person and was about to get the lesson of his life. Subscribe and like this video to see how the story unfolds. The scene unfolds on a breathtaking day in City View Park, where the sun shines brightly on a picturesque landscape of green grass and blue skies. Families enjoy their day. Children frolic with youthful energy, and joggers grace the trails with rhythmic strides. Amidst the happy scenes of park life, Brandon Stone, the legendary boxer, sits quietly on a bench, dressed in a hoodie and jeans. He radiates an air of calm as he offers a handful of birdseed to a gathering of pigeons. His expression softens as a young boy, drawn to the spectacle, sprints toward the bench. The young boy, his face aglow with excitement, inches closer to the bench, his feet scarcely touching the ground as he jumps in place with anticipation. His question bursts forth in a torrent of youthful energy, as if he scarcely believes what his eyes are telling him. Are you Brandon Stone? Brandon, still smiling, turns to look at the boy. His eyes gleam with a warmth that belies his boxing reputation. That's right, kid, he responds, his voice deep and rich. Brandon's shoulders shake with a chuckle as he recognizes the young fan's unbridled enthusiasm. Want an autograph? He asks, the hint of a twinkle in his eyes. The boy nods vigorously, his face aglow with a mix of disbelief and delight. Brandon takes a notepad from the boy, his fingers nimbly wielding a pen. A few quick strokes and his signature adorns the paper like a work of art. As the boy beams with pride, his mother calls him back, her gratitude to Brandon clear in her tone. Meanwhile, Officer Cooper, a daily presence in the park, patrols with a gait that demands respect, or at the very least, fear. His close-cropped hair and mirrored sunglasses conceal piercing eyes that survey the area with steely scrutiny. As he rounds a corner, Cooper's gaze falls upon the famous boxer feeding pigeons, the group of birds forming a halo of tranquility around him. Cooper's lips curl in a sneer, his gaze narrowing to a calculating slit. Just great, he mutters to himself, his expression hardening with each step. As he approaches Brandon, his thoughts turn bitter and judgmental. Another one loitering around here, he sneers to himself, his gaze accusatory. Probably up to no good. Wouldn't be surprised if he starts causing trouble. The power of his badge lends him an inflated sense of authority. Officer Cooper, self-styled sentinel of the park, draws near Brandon Stone, his body language radiating a palpable air of intimidation. He stands straight, his shoulders squared, and his chin jutting out like a knife's edge. Hey, Cooper barks, his tone as sharp as a lash. You can't be sitting here all day. Move along. The pigeons, startled by Cooper's aggressive approach, scatter in a flurry of feathers and coos. Brandon, however, remains unperturbed, his expression unreadable, with a hint of amusement coloring his voice. Brandon replies, I'm just feeding the pigeons. Man, is that a crime? His calm demeanor stands in stark contrast to the cop's confrontational approach, the interaction taking on the air of a verbal chess match. Cooper's eyes narrow at Brandon's response, his hands finding the comfort of his holster as if readying for battle. Maybe not, he concedes, his voice laced with thinly veiled contempt. But it ain't right either. Cooper's irritation boils over at Brandon's nonchalance, his disdain palpable as he scoffs in response. Don't get smart with me, he spits, his words sharp as broken glass. I said move along. The cop's aggression rises like a storm tide, his hand inching closer to his holster, the implied threat crystal clear. Brandon, unflinching, meets the cop's gaze with a steely stare, his body language as unyielding as granite. I'm not going anywhere, he replies, his words slow and deliberate. The standoff between Brandon Stone and Officer Cooper draws a small crowd, their whispers and mutterings adding to the tense atmosphere. In contrast to the cop's seething anger, Brandon remains composed, seated on the bench as if merely engaging in a casual conversation. "I'm not bothering anyone," he reiterates calmly. "I think you've got the wrong idea about me. I'm just enjoying the park like everyone else." Cooper's simmering frustration morphs into an inferno of rage as he leans forward. His face mere inches away from Brandon's. The veins on his neck pulse as he stares Brandon down, his eyes burning with a ferocity that could melt steel. "I don't care who you think you are," he growls, his voice a low rumble of hostility. "Get up. Now." The crowd inhales sharply, fear and awe suffusing their collective reaction. Cooper's patience snaps like a brittle twig. His baton becomes a fury-fueled extension of his arm as he lashes out. The sound of the impact reverberates through the crowd like a thunderclap. The crack of the baton against Brandon's shoulder sending shockwaves of horror and disbelief throughout the park. Brandon, taken aback by the sudden onslaught, lets out a low grunt of pain, his body tensing as if bracing for the next blow. The crowd's reaction is instant and visceral, a chorus of gasps and cries of protest erupting around the scene like a dormant volcano awakening. Brandon Stone rises from his seated position, his height and imposing figure dwarfing Officer Cooper. His movements are slow and deliberate, each motion radiating a simmering intensity. Despite the throbbing pain in his shoulder, Brandon's face remains unreadable, his eyes a deep, dark pool of still water. He fixes his gaze on Cooper, the silence between them rife with an unspoken challenge. The crowd's murmurings quiet as all eyes focus on the unfolding drama. Brandon's voice, a deliberate whisper that carries the weight of mountains, breaks the silence. "You didn't have to do that," he utters, his words carrying an undercurrent of repressed rage. Cooper, momentarily surprised by Brandon's restraint, stumbles over his words. You should have just listened," he replies, the arrogance in his tone undercut by a hint of fear. The tension in the air grows thicker by the second. The crowd now hushed as they anticipate what comes next. Cooper, his smirk a mask to hide his fraying nerves, takes a step closer to Brandon Stone, his hand still clutching the baton. "What are you going to do about it?" he taunts, his voice now laced with bravado and thinly veiled panic. Brandon, unperturbed by Cooper's threats, stands his ground, his posture unflinching, moving with the slow, deliberate pace of a stalking tiger. Brandon draws even closer to Cooper, his presence an immovable wall of unyielding authority. "I could show you," he growls, his words carrying the weight of an unspoken promise. "But first, you're going to apologize to these people for what you just did." The crowd, enthralled by Brandon's steely resolve, shifts closer, their eyes widening as they witness the unfolding drama. Cooper's smug facade cracks under the pressure as he takes a hesitant step backward, his feet betraying his fear despite his attempts to hide it. "Apologize?" Cooper spits, his voice dripping with mockery. "To you? Not a chance." The crowd, sensing the powder keg at its brink, watches with bated breath, each word and gesture a potential spark to ignite the scene. Brandon's patience stretches thin as he clenches his jaw, a primal rage simmering beneath his calm exterior. When Cooper lunges forward, his baton raised in a wild arc, Brandon's reflexes, honed to razor-sharp precision, intercept the blow. His hand closes around the baton like an iron vice, and the crowd erupts in a cacophony of cheers and gasps as he effortlessly wrenches the weapon from Cooper's grasp. Cooper, his eyes wide with disbelief, stumbles backward, his face reddening as he realizes the gravity of his mistake. Brandon's voice, a deadly whisper, pierces the charged atmosphere. "You messed with the wrong guy today," he growls, the threat in his words as palpable as the anger in his eyes. "You messed with the wrong guy in the wrong city on the wrong day, and now you're going to pay the price." Cooper, his bravado evaporating like mist in the morning sun, takes another step back, his desperation palpable, when he lashes out with a wild, untrained punch. Brandon dodges with the fluidity of a shark in water. He counters with a series of precise, expertly executed strikes, each one landing with devastating accuracy. Cooper, caught off guard and overpowered, staggers backward, his defenses crumbling under Brandon's relentless barrage. As the spectacle unfolds, the crowd erupts in ecstatic cheers, a symphony of chants and shouts reverberating throughout the park. Phones emerge from pockets to capture the moment, their cameras immortalizing the clash like a swarm of reporters at a press conference. Brandon, a portrait of grace under pressure, allows Cooper to stagger back to his feet. Despite his victory, his face remains impassive, his eyes a window into the depths of his self-control. "I could have hurt you," he admits, his tone measured and calm. "But that's not who I am. I'm not like you." The crowd, hushed by the display of restraint, holds its breath, captivated by Brandon's words. Cooper, his bravado reduced to tatters, stumbles under the weight of Brandon's statement, the reality of his defeat dawning on him. His eyes dart around the crowd, seeking an escape but finding only the unblinking eyes of spectators. Brandon's voice, like a hammer striking the anvil of Cooper's pride, echoes through the park. "These people," he declares, his words resonating with the weight of justice, "saw what you did. They saw you, a representative of the law, assault an unarmed citizen, and they saw me defend myself." The crowd, galvanized by Brandon's words, erupts in agreement, their voices a chorus of condemnation. Cooper, his defeat palpable, opens his mouth to protest, but the arrival of a senior officer silences him. The officer's stern expression signals his displeasure long before he speaks. "Cooper," the senior officer bellows, his voice booming over the crowd's chatter. "What's going on here?" Cooper, his shoulders hunched with shame, stammers but finds no words. The crowd, emboldened by Brandon's heroism, surges forward, their voices a chorus of righteous indignation. The senior officer listens, his resolve steely as he absorbs the outrage of the people. Finally, the senior officer turns to Brandon, his tone markedly respectful. "Mr. Stone, I am so sorry about this. I assure you, it will be dealt with swiftly and justly." Brandon nods, his voice regaining its evenness. "You're right. People like him don't deserve to wear the badge. They give the entire force a bad name." The crowd, buoyed by Brandon's condemnation, erupts in applause. Cooper, his humiliation complete, is ordered to relinquish his badge and gun, his career effectively over. As he slinks away, escorted by the senior officer, the crowd cheers in approval. Among the onlookers, a young boy approaches Brandon, his face beaming with admiration. "You're really a hero, Mr. Stone," he says, his voice a mixture of awe and gratitude. Brandon smiles warmly, lowering himself to the boy's level. "The real heroes," he says, "are the ones who stand up for what's right. It doesn't matter how big or small you are, or what people think of you. Always remember that." The boy nods vigorously, his eyes shining with newfound resolve. As the onlookers drift away, their stories of Brandon Stone's heroism ready to spread throughout the city. The boxer returns to his bench. The pigeons, like old friends, flock back to Brandon's side, their coos and fluttering wings a gentle symphony of companionship. Brandon, leaning back on the bench, surveys the park with a quiet sense of satisfaction. As the camera pulls away, revealing the tranquility of the park in stark contrast to the chaos that had unfolded moments earlier, a narrator's voice draws the scene to a close. On this day in City View Park, a single moment altered the course of many lives. For Brandon Stone, it was a reminder of the power of standing up for what's right. For a young boy, it was a lesson in courage. And for the community, it was a demonstration of justice and compassion. In the end, we all need heroes, and sometimes they can be found in the unlikeliest of places.